Hi, my name is Lori Mirabelli, and this is my story. I got started as a full-time artist in 2009. That's when I had the dream that I was going to be a full-time artist. And because my dream was big, I really had to make sure that I could do it. And so leaving my full-time job that I had for a multitude of years was a big risk. And so I resigned from my job and I became a full-time artist at that point. A day in the life for me is actually quite structured. I really am consistent with what I do. I wake up every morning and I sit at my computer and I think about all of the things that I need to get done, all the shows that I have upcoming. It's an important part of my day to kind of center myself and prepare for the work ahead. Some days are creative days, some days are not. I joke about the fact that I say my muse is here or she's with me today, and I feel more creative in those days. Those are the ones where I really don't care about washing out my paint bucket or sweeping up the mess that I've done in my studio. I just create and it just kind of explodes out of me. And then there's other days where I paint like a kindergarten student who's never held a paintbrush before. I still think it's important to be in the studio, and those are the days that I'll clean up my stuff and I'll varnish paintings or I'll package up paintings that I know I need to ship to shows or galleries. I always say, if I'm not on vacation, I'm working. And that's really true. It's 7 days a week for me. My inspiration for my art, I find, is very personal. I would say I had a love, obviously, for other artists. I don't feel like I was inspired by them. I really feel like my whole life I've been on a journey and not really knowing where I was going or where I was going to end up. And so my art kind of reined me in and kept me sane. I always knew I was a creative and I always knew I was different. I didn't know what made me different, but I just knew I would look at the world a little off-center. So I would say my inspiration really is a very internal journey, and I think that's why I coined myself as a lyrical abstract artist, where I'm really telling a story with my images and my shapes and the symbology that I put into my work. It was just a really easy transition for me when I actually realized that I had this energy inside of me that I had to get out. I'm just so drawn to anything that is mid-century modern. The colors and the shapes and the styles that I really was drawn to. Just in general, it really didn't have to be about art, but like the furniture, the simplicity of how people would decorate back then. And I don't know, maybe that was a time where I was still innocent in terms of like my age. And I do feel like my work has this sort of the colors and this vibe of New York in that time period. Why New York? I don't know. Maybe that was someplace I maybe was there in another life, if you believe in that stuff. And I have had some movies that have purchased my work and they were specifically looking for the 1960s, 70s New York vibe. And then I went to New York for the first time and I experienced selling my art there, and I was shocked to find that I actually felt like I fit in. And I'd never felt that in downtown Toronto, ever. I always felt like a fish out of water. But New York, you can just be who you are. And that was a real safe thing for me to experience. Mental blocks for an artist suck. I used to force myself to stay in the studio and paint. That would just make things worse. Now I just do other things. I do things that make me happy. I do own a horse, but I can't use that horse on days where I'm not having a good painting day because I still kind of carry around a little bit of the frustration that today is not a painting day. So I try and inspire myself by doing other things that are creative, like home renovations, or I look at things that are on the internet. I'm a bit of a junkie with documentaries. So if I can find a good doc that I really like, I'll indulge in that. And I also find that not thinking about art, not doing any art, like really just turning it off helps for me. Because then the want, that energy starts to build in me, and then the explosion happens. Or the darn muse just comes back from holidays and then I'm ready to paint. I get asked a lot of questions about my work, but the one question I think I get asked the most is about these little symbols that I use. I started using them in 2017. The Symbology I think that I'm using is I'm writing a love letter to myself, and I'm using the nostalgia of how I remember a time in my life where it was simple. It never really kind of made sense to me until I realized that I was actually saying something. It's such a personal message that I'm hiding in my work. I started writing in code, and people have asked me, what does that mean? And it's not anything that I can just say, oh, this means this. It's really broad, it's really general, and it's just a reminder to myself that it's okay to be who I am. Growing up, I was different. I knew I was different. I wanted to be a special effects artist for horror movies. And that was like a dream of mine, that I was gonna run away to LA and that I was gonna somehow get into show business and be the best special effects artist ever.